Dad Pod.
This is a video thing as well.
Doesn't have a name.
Podcast.
Midlife crisis.
Paddy Daddy.
Midlife crisis.
Dadcast.
That's not bad, actually. Yeah.
Dadcast, Misadventures in Parenting. Brought to you by Cadbury Freddo Treasures. Discover the new Freddo Treasures Space Series with Cadbury Dairy Milk buttons, one surprise toy in every chest.
And you're very welcome along to this week's edition of the Dadcast. Some of the dads are here. Nathan is here.
Good afternoon.
Dave is here.
Hello, dads.
You're very slow off the mark there, Nathan. You go, yes, I am. Hooray, welcome. We've all managed to
Sorry.
again.
As you were saying hello, somebody was WhatsApping me on my phone, and I was half reading that and half listening to you. I apologize.
This is the problem. This is your parenting style. You're on your phone. Dad, put your phone away.
What? Yeah.
Where are we?
Literally.
How did we get here? We're in Mayo. And is that a bone of contention between your children and you?
No, it'd be more, I'd say, a bone of contention with my wife and me. Be present.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be in a while. Give me 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes.
Leave it out of the bedroom.
Jesus. And the phone as well. Bloody hell.
Hey.
Nathan, we should ask the question of Ger. Are we recording, Ger?
We are 100% recording. I'm checking it again. It says pause/stop recording, which suggests that there is something happening.
It does. Excellent.
Yeah. So I'd like to apologize. Nathan, do you want to go back on some of that old ground last week and give us a review of your holidays? Because people didn't actually hear a single word you had to say about your holidays. Apart from the promise at the end, you slated the place that you were at.
And we should, of course, remember that my holiday reviews are much sought after, considering my rave review of Lanzarote last year resulted in record profits before they had to shut the entire place down, unfortunately. But it did work in my favor because I managed to get a refund because of one of the people who had listened to us had also booked in and found a workaround to cancel it and get a refund on a non-refundable booking. So it all worked out in my favor in the end. I told them that my wife was pregnant. So I'd rang them 3 times and they were like, it's a non-refundable booking. There's nothing we can do. And then I must have mentioned it on the Dadcast and I got a DM from one of our listeners saying, I had the same problem. I told them my wife was pregnant and we wouldn't be able to travel. They were offering a voucher. We wouldn't be able to travel next year either. And I got a refund straight away. So I rang them up and it was the same girl who I'd been previously speaking to 3 times. Because I was like, oh yeah, as if we'd never spoken. I didn't realize. And she goes, yeah, I sent you an email twice over the last month about this. And I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, things have changed. My wife is pregnant now. So look, even in a year, we're not going to be in a position to go. And she's like, oh my God, 4 children. Congratulations. You're going to be so, and I was like, oh my God, 4 children. Dear God, that is said out loud. That would be quite shocking. She goes, I'll give you a refund straight away. And sure enough, 2 days later, the money was back in my account.
Wow. I still haven't got my Ryanair money back.
I still haven't got the money from Aer Lingus for the flights.
Yeah, I'm sure it's coming. Nathan, that's bold. Like that is absolutely 100% tempting fate. And you know what? I hope miraculously you do fall pregnant now, just to see the response.
Well, if for some reason this person working in the hotel is an avid listener of the Dadcast, can they take the Murphys to court now and get this non-refundable refunded amount back? Maybe.
Hopefully not. We've all moved on.
What's more likely to happen is that one of our listeners decides to screw you, Nathan. I didn't get my money back, and I'm going to send this clip helpfully to the.
Yeah.
And they will...
It's going to be on some message board. This hotel is going to end up shutting down. Everyone's going to lose their jobs all because of me.
Yeah, and suddenly they're like, "Hang on, there was a very fertile period in lockdown in Ireland."
So,
have they not heard about condoms?
Well, did you see the story yesterday that Hollis Street are expecting, because we did talk about this at the start of lockdown, Hollis Street are expecting a baby boom. Whereas I think it was pointed out that every person going in to have a baby, it'll definitely be their first baby because nobody who had children already was thinking during lockdown, the one thing I need is more children. So, yeah, there is going to be some sort of a baby boom, it seems.
Yeah. The boozing that everybody did at the start of lockdown, though, might have prevented those people who already have kids from remembering to be careful. So there's like it could actually be a nice slice of demographic.
Do you remember those days when we just had a drink every night and we wondered when this would ever end? And here we are 5 months later. It hasn't ended.
Still having a drink every night.
Well, thankfully I haven't been back at work, so that has been the main reason I have not been having a drink every night. But it's just starting to creep in on me again, the possibility that this is going to get worse again before it gets better permanently. And I'm just praying now within 2 weeks out from the school resumption that it really happens.
Yeah, by the time this episode gets edited and dropped, it actually will probably really only be a week until the school
Christmas
happens. Well, it could be. I'm promising nothing these days. But I've been very good about this, ever since our friends, our new sponsors came on board. And before I talk about them, Dave, tell us about what are your plans, or have you had any communication just yet?
Yeah, well, the email we were expecting from the school has dropped in the last couple of hours. There's a lot to read through, I think, so I haven't sat down to do that yet. I'll do that later. And yesterday, our Montessori were in touch for the younger guy, and there's a couple of pages worth of reading there in terms of some of the changes they've made. There's no school bag allowed anymore. All food and any items brought in have to be brought in Ziploc bags. Obviously, no parents are allowed on the premises anymore, which we would have gone in sometimes to collect them. And there would have been a couple of other parents knocking around the place.
So how do you get them out? You ring and say we're outside.
You stand in a designated area outside, and then I guess the door opens and they run out to you.
Okay, how do they know it's yours?
They just take a punt.
But, I mean, is there going to be random strangers standing outside creches having children dispensed to them like some kind of reverse Candyman?
Look, let's hope not, but maybe they're just some of the risks that people need to take.
We all need to do our bit, is that it?
If you have dispensed any sort of medicine to your child, like even something as trivial as a Nurofen or a spoonful of Calpol, they're not allowed in. If they're on antibiotics for any reason, they're not allowed on the premises until the full course of antibiotics has been completed, because the creche and Montessori staff can no longer dispense medicine to children.
Right.
I think that's it. There's probably a couple more I'm missing, but yeah, there's an awful lot to think about.
That's pretty hardcore. I just want to tell everybody that Dadcast, the Misadventures of Parenting, is brought to you by Cadbury Freddo Treasures. Discover the new Freddo Treasures, the Space Series, with Cadbury Dairy Milk buttons and one surprise toy in every chest. These are treat-wise at only 76 calories. And you can also get the white button version, the white Freddo Treasures, white Cadbury Dairy Milk buttons, and one surprise toy in every chest. And there's one extra calorie that you have to suffer through for that creamy white chocolate goodness. So it's probably worth it.
Just run up and down the stairs once, you've got that 1 calorie boxed off.
Happy days. Nathan, you are obviously a power broker. You're an influencer when it comes to the whole issue of the return protocols to your school. You might be said to be the czar protocols in whatever school your kids are in.
Oh yeah, well, as you know, being the chairman of the PTA is a vital role in society, and never more so than right now. Are you yawning on purpose there, McIntyre, or is it just unfortunate that the camera is on you right now and I can see this?
Little from column B. I'm struggling to wonder why, and maybe Ger's just taking the mic, but why the PA have any involvement at all in this?
No, they don't overly. Aside from, the school would contact the PA just in case they have any general ideas or any thoughts.
Okay.
And obviously, as a PTA, you would be offering to assist in any way you can.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, Dave. Busy Southside parents who couldn't possibly prevent themselves from sticking their nose in and lecturing the school on how they know better. And king of them is Nathan. There, he's like,
no.
Wow, I'm not sure I would do things that way now.
I'm the last person to do that. Considering I'm married to one of the teachers in the school, I am not going to be that guy. But so they sent out an email last night, and it's difficult because, obviously the department have sent out advice, but every single school is totally different in a million different ways. So the primary school my kids go to, I'm fairly sure they still don't have hot water in the bathrooms. So you're talking about washing hands and hand sanitizing and all that, and you don't even have hot water. They also have a situation.
How can they have hot water though? They can't have kids scalding themselves.
Lukewarm water.
Well, I mean, you look at the toilets in most schools, it's difficult for them to be able to gauge the temperature that is safe for all kids, to the point where A, they don't burn themselves, and B, COVID is killed off on their dirt, grubby little hands. It's hand sanitizer, I think, is going to be the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think there's advice on that in that they'll be, they'll have their own personal hand sanitizer, and there's going to be no real sharing of copybooks or anything. So everybody, where once upon a time a table would have a set of, pencils and markers and various different things they'd use, now everybody's going to have their own one that won't be shared. I think from third class up, they're all going to be in pods. Again, how effective this can really be. So you'll be in a pod with 4 or 5 other kids for the entire year. You'll all sit at a similar-ish table, and you won't interact with you won't go near the other students in any way while you're inside. But then when you're on your lunch break, actually, you'll all be outside together, and that's just fine. And sure, God knows what they do when are play dates gone forever? Or will people stick to having play dates with the people in their pods? I doubt it. It's all common sense stuff. So it all comes back to the parents. Like, the parents need to be responsible in all of this. So like the areas where you can see problems are the picking up and dropping off in the mornings, because the parents congregate. So school starts, I think they're at 8:20. You're saying, don't get out of your car, don't congregate at the school gate, which again, because the school's slightly different to other schools in a way, they've got this long alleyway down to the school that school don't actually own, because there's a house at the end of it that they own. So you're not allowed there before 8:20. So generally people will be there from sort of 8:10 standing around. Don't do that anymore. Also, they're going to do staggered end times. But again, you're saying to the parents, don't be standing beside each other, social distance, all of that sort of stuff. And there's only so much the school can do. Like, I'm probably like a lot of people, we spent the first 3 months going, Jesus Christ, the kids need to go back to school. But now you're 2 weeks away from it happening. You're looking at the cases rising, and you're wondering in practicality how you can implement too many of the regulations you would want to implement in terms of social distancing, wearing masks, things like that. So like, it just seems to be a hit and hope here. Get them back, and hope to God that in the community it's not really out there, and that it doesn't get into your school, because you are relying on parents staying away from each other. And also the number one of, like, I know, like, parents not sending their kids to school when they're in any way sick.
Yeah.
Like, just has to be. I would be quite harsh in this. Like, I would have been suggesting that, you have to basically shame everybody within the family if the child is sent in sick. You have to isolate them, ring the doctor, ring 999, COVID officers coming in, all of that, just so that the parents know, if you do this to your child, like, it's not really fair on them. So, like, you would hope.
Can you imagine how many days our kids are going to miss? Yeah. My kids are generally in a position where, if in a COVID era they're suffering from the same symptoms as they have done for the last 2 years, I would say I would be unable to send them in at least 30 or 40% of the time. Yeah. Runny nose, cough, sniffle, bit of a high temperature.
Well, if runny nose
I literally had this conversation with my wife about 2 hours ago, because the now 2-year-old in our house has a runny nose. Like, the first time in 6 months anyone's had a bloody runny nose. I'm like, dear God, if this goes around now and the lads end up getting a cough or something next week and they can't go to school for 2 weeks, what a disaster. But I was saying, if they end up with a runny nose, like, well, a runny nose isn't one of the symptoms. So therefore, they should be able to go to school.
I'd say that is going to be contained in this pack that I have to read. We'll have to go through all of the symptoms. Let's hope runny nose isn't on it, because one of the lads has pretty much a runny nose on a permanent basis. My wife was shopping last week with the younger guy who was pretending he had a cough while in the trolley in the supermarket. And then after every cough, he would turn around to my wife and announce that he thought he had the virus.
Good man.
Oh, he's going to get arrested in the airport for pretending to be having a bomb.
He thought it was the funniest thing in the world, which it kind of was, but like, not right now. No. Not at this delicate time we have now reached. But he would be the one that would have a runny nose, a little bit of a cough regularly. And you're going to have to basically press pause on everything that you've planned for that day, or indeed that week potentially. Or look, an ear infection that you might get antibiotics for, or a chest infection you get antibiotics for. That's him gone for, what's the normal length of time it takes for a course of antibiotics to complete it? It's certainly a week, isn't it?
Yeah, it's usually 5 days. You should have run through it generally in about 5 days. Sometimes it's 7, but I mean,
gone for a week.
If your child has a chest infection, you probably don't want them in school at the moment.
No, okay, we'll say an ear infection, for example, or a sore throat. That has nothing to do with COVID. but like kids get them all the time. You go to your doctor, oh yeah, I'm going to give them some steroids and a course of antibiotics, gone for the week. Whereas before you might have kept them out that morning, send them back in the afternoon, and you could rely on the staff at the school or the creche or wherever it might be, childminders, to dispense the medicine on that following day. But we can't do that anymore. There's going to be, attendance levels are going to drop, aren't they? And therefore the amount of time that kids spend missing out on lessons is going to increase. And I just wonder, is it going to be possible for teachers to complete the curriculum through a term or through an ordinary school year?
Well, the curriculum is changing anyway. So for the first month, I know in their school there's no homework for the first month. And there's a focus on maths, English, Irish above everything else. And also I think on whatever the social studies they do are. So just to bring everybody back up to speed again on the basics that they may have missed out on. So I think the curriculum has slightly changed anyways.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
But like there's so many questions. I think they still haven't figured out what happens if it does, if 3 or 4 students are off sick. Does the teacher have to teach them at home while they're off? Like, do they, as they were during lockdown, send them a different set of schoolwork? Or are you just off sick like you were back in normal times and, you lie on the couch all day and do nothing?
That's a good question. But I guess it would be easy. It's easy for them to put a system in place whereby the day's learnings can be condensed into a package that's put on the same platforms we were using throughout lockdown. And they could be sent first thing in the morning, or maybe a couple of hours into the day. I'm not sure, but like there's no reason if a kid has a sniffle and parents really don't feel they should be sent to school, that they miss out on 3 or 4 days of homework and studies in school, because you don't want other kids, racing ahead of them.
Yeah. Like the way everything else is going in this country right now, it feels
Anyway,
like
this is
it's
all
going to
they're
end up being a mess.
Well, certainly it feels like, do you remember Ollie was at the wheel after the night in Paris, and we've got this, and then things didn't go very well immediately after that. It took a long time for them to actually show some signs of progress.
Who's our Bruno Fernandes?
Well, he someone who has yet to come flitter across our consciousness. There must be somebody riding on a white horse who has to burst in now. Did everybody get sent the Rob Delaney article in The Guardian about Snip? I got sent it like independently of the Dadcast account, which got it about 15 times. I got it DM'd to me quite a bit over the last while. Did you see this? Did you read it?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Did it inspire you? You know Rob Delaney, the comedian.
I do. Yes. Yeah.
He went and got the Snip. His wife has had 4 babies in 4 years, and certainly she's been pregnant for like a long time, over a 7-year period. And he decided he'd had enough, and he went and got it done and wrote a pretty good piece. It was a funny scene where he got caught jerking off at 3 o'clock in the morning, and so, what are you doing? He's like, I need to make sure that it doesn't have any blood in it, and I didn't want you to see it in case it did. And she's like, oh, come on, you can do that with me. So it seems like they were back riding again, and everything was grand afterwards. So all's well that ends well, I think, was what I took from that.
Yeah, it certainly upon reading it, it hasn't driven me into the arms of the nearest surgeon. And I know he wrote the line at least once in the piece: 40 minutes of pain is a small sacrifice, given that my wife spent, the guts of 40 months pregnant over the course of the last 7 years. And that, that's fair. That is true. But I still don't really want the 40 minutes of pain. And the fact that he had to ask the surgeon to go in a second time because he could feel everything. And the local anesthetic hadn't quite taken hold. They had to give him a booster. And he was asking for laughing gas, and he was asking for all sorts of additional sedatives to try and help him through the process.
They love their laughing gas in Britain, don't they? I don't think it's as common over here. It's almost like it stopped at Holyhead or something. Dave, who was in touch by DM, says, love the podcast. As a guy who's had the snip, I can tell you, do, in capital letters, do get the anaesthetic into the ball bag. This before the doc opens the bag, little slit, pulls out the tube, then cuts them and burns the ends to seal them. And yes, you're awake. Yes, make small talk. And yes, can smell the burning.
Oh my God. Well, now it's never happening.
Well, that's like that. You can. That's the same as going to the dentist. You know the way the dentist cleans you.
We've lost you there, Ger.
I don't know what his dentist does for him that's in some way comparable to a vasectomy is all I'm wondering. Oh, no. Like,
I suppose...
You don't ask for root canal surgery.
Yeah, this is definitely elective.
Bags, slits, tubes pulled out, cut, and ends burnt. That's like just a thing you have to do. We've had a very long email about this, which I'm going to get to here because there's some funny lines in it.
We lost you for about a minute there, Ger, but you keep going. Go to that email.
When did you lose me?
When you just came back with the slit and the ball bag.
Yeah, somewhere between sealing the wound by burning the two ends and then coming back with the slit and the ball bag. I guess if you want to avoid the smell of burning, I was going to say burning flesh. Is it even flesh? It's tissue?
Muscle?
I don't know what it is.
Burning tubes.
You could wear a nose peg, I suppose, or hold your nose if you want to get rid of that particular unpleasant aspect of the process.
What is that burning? Am I having a stroke or are my balls just being destroyed? Either way, it's not good.
Get some menthol and put it on your nose underneath your mask. Right. For the sake of not giving my name, let's say I'm called Ricardo Esteban Esquire. If you're giving yourself a fake name, why not go exotic on it? I love the podcast. I've heard a few times you talking about getting the snip, and the conversation often ends with visions of wincing pain, like someone is going to slice your Mickey with a rusty scalpel. I'll give my story when I got the snip last year. I was 33 when we welcomed our second child into the world. Our first child was born 15 months earlier. So you can imagine, while my good lady wife was pregnant with number 2, we were bracing/freaking out for the ensuing madness. We discussed options on how not to make it 3 in 3 years. No, none of us had 3 in 3 years. Pill implant, didn't agree with my wife. Condoms work, but after a few pints, who hasn't taken a risk on it? So we discussed getting the snip and both agreed that having 2 kids made perfect sense. We get to put our love into 2 wonderful kids while safe in the knowledge that in 18 years we get our life back. Maybe 23, depending on the economy. After our second was born, I booked an appointment in a clinic in Galway to get the snip. A lot of research, comforted by the idea that it won't be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre down there. I made an appointment for Friday afternoon, knowing that I don't have to take time off work. I got a couple of days recovery before having to go back. After a consultation period, mainly focusing on being 34 is quite young to get the snip. But after talking through why I thought this was the right thing to do, then we were good to go. It's good to know that, you might be talked out of it, but it's not just for the money. Procedure takes 20 minutes. It's like going to the dentist, but a dentist that shaves your balls first, unless you have a dentist that also does that, in which case the similarities are more remarkable. In the physician's room, you drop your trousers. Leaving them on makes the procedure more tricky. Hop up on the table, lie back, and you get shaved. Very, very weird experience. But we have all been in a labor ward, so nowhere near as weird as that. I was wondering where that was going. Then the doctor applies local anesthetic into your ball sack. It's like 2 pinches in your sack, and then you're numbed up, and the doctor is good to go. You do feel some tugging, and it obviously is a weird sensation throughout the 15 to 20-minute procedure, but I can say it was not painful. I mean, tugging doesn't seem that unusual for some of you guys. The doctor was very friendly and talked about holidays and the like, so it took your mind off what was happening. Does it really? It
couldn't possibly.
I don't think that's a good distraction. When he's done, you get some gauze applied to your balls and off you go. They don't recommend driving long distances afterwards. I drove for an hour. As the anesthetic wore off, there was a dull pain and driving started to become uncomfortable towards the end. Not very sore, but dull. This dull pain lasted a couple of days and started to wear off. I could still walk around over the weekend, but I wouldn't plan any heavy lifting or manual labor for a few days. I was back in my office job on Monday and no issue. You're going to have to leave now because Daddy's at work and he's about to read some stuff you can't hear. So, no, off you go. Come on.
There's no way to speak to your wife, Ger.
Come on, quick, off you go. You're going to have to talk amongst yourselves there for a minute while I deal with this, because this next bit is definitely not for young ears.
How come that guy never mentioned the burning? I'm wondering, did something go wrong?
I don't think everybody gets this. Turns out there's 2 different types of this. I've been doing a little bit of research. Turns out there's definitely a burning, and then there's the burning I think has no stitches. Bye. Bye-bye. The burning has no stitches, I think. So maybe it's preferable and there's a quicker heal.
Okay, right.
Back to Ricardo Esteban. After a couple of weeks, you wouldn't know you had the snip. There is a bit of blood in the jizz the first time afterwards, which is very weird, but that happens. Too much info? He asks. Certainly too much info to share with my 5-year-old. After about 6 months, you've got to submit a sample to get tested to confirm you're sterile. Apparently, some people have done this, and the story is the same for all. So there you go. No regrets. Carry on life worry-free.
So for 6 months, you can't take any chances, am I right?
Yeah. Okay,
so go on as you were.
Honestly, I don't regret it for 1 minute. There's no side effects. If you and your wife are adamant you don't want any more kids, I'd say go for it. You should also consider a scenario where something horrible happens to your wife, and after a suitable grieving period, you get shacked up with a Brazilian swimmer model. And in that scenario that you still wouldn't want kids, then I would say go for it.
Okay, I haven't thought through that part of it. But
I mean,
as much as these people are trying to reassure us, I'm not feeling any better. I'm not. Well, Ger, you're kind of in a similar boat, are you not? You definitely are, Nathan.
I'm not, as I've pointed out. I'm not thinking about this till I'm 40. But you've said you gave a cast iron guarantee to thousands of people live at a year ago. Yeah.
Then the world.
You will be doing this.
The world was struck by a global pandemic.
Can you still get it? That's a good point. Can you actually get a vasectomy right now?
You can. You definitely
They're back open.
People have been in touch. They have been in touch.
Yeah.
That age thing, though, you know, Nathan, I was in getting a medical test just this very day, and the doctor was like, I was in getting nodes checked out. He's like, oh, it's all grand, that's fine, I don't need to do anything. And then discovered this like little shelf, which was like, you know, at your age, you'd want to start thinking about your cholesterol and stuff. I'm 49 and I've been taking aspirin for ages. I was like, we're not the same age. What? We're not the same age. What are you talking about? What? No.
Well, you're not
fake.
that far from 49, are you?
Well, I'm much closer to Nathan than I am to my good doctor, who was an excellent doctor and full of good advice. But your whole like, you're just in a different demographic now, Nathan. Like you're at high risk for stress-related illness.
That's for sure.
They start talking to you about stroke and heart attack, and you're like, and so I came home and celebrated with a slice of banana bread and 2 biscuits, just like maybe just trying to say goodbye to that life. But yeah,
that's depressing for you.
Well, it wasn't great.
What other advice did he give for your mid-40s self?
Go and talk to your GP. Sort out, check your blood pressure regularly, check your cholesterol regularly. And then you're like. So I had to go to the hospital to get it done, and you're wandering around going, look at all these sick people, and you can realize that like they're looking at you going, geez, look at all these sick people. It's like, oh man. How quickly
they're looking at you going, geez, that guy's got a few problems, I'd say.
How quickly you go from being like a fully functioning member of society to somebody who's like, you know, passing people who are ringing other people explaining that, oh, they've upped my dosage. And I was like, Jesus, you know, you get from the point where you're like virile and worried about like impregnating someone, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I mean, we have these little pills that might help you if you need them. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, wow, okay, fucking hell, that happened quick. Life comes at you fast.
How often do you need to go in and get your bloods done?
I don't know. I mean, no, I don't. Like, I don't know because I haven't seen the GP since. But
right, yeah.
I'm assuming that my cholesterol is fine because I've been eating so well over lockdown.
Yeah, well, some people have a naturally occurring high level of cholesterol, which they take medication for despite being completely healthy in every other aspect of their lives. So, you know, it's not the end of the world if that is a road you do have to go down. But it's inescapable, the fact that we are getting old and that our kids are getting older. And, well, certainly some of them are. Nathan, obviously, you still have a toddler at home. And Adrian does, who's not here today. But you just have to try and do it as gracefully as you can, Ger.
Yeah, well, it was another kick up the ass to be like, maybe if we're facing into a long winter of everybody being sick, you want to be as healthy as you possibly can and put the rest of the banana bread down. The other thing that happened was we were watching the French Call My Agent. Have you seen that? It's on Netflix. It's pretty good. It's like a comedy drama set in a French movie agency, and it's set in Paris. And so I was chatting about parts of Paris and how we'd all been there for the Euros, and actually talking about Brexit as well, because I actually flew home the morning after the Brexit result happened, and my wife was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot that you were in France at the Euros." I was like, "Yeah, I was there for like 3.5 weeks." She was like, "Yeah, I can't remember anything. We had just had our third child in March, and I went to the Euros for like 3.5 weeks. I came home early for the quarterfinals because I was like, oh, I'm taking a complete piss now. In retrospect, I could have stayed the whole time because you can't remember a thing."
Yeah. Yeah, geez. Yeah, the shit you got away with. Yeah, because I did the same in 2012. I went to the Euros with and then I went to the Olympics. So I was gone for pretty much the entire summer. But so my wife was, she was accepting of it. And I think we, lots of help sorted for the few weeks in Poland and all that. But then I was sharing an apartment with Dermot and Dave. And I, was obviously explaining how terrible a husband I was, having deserted my wife with our first child, 3 months old at home. And Dave is like, yeah, my wife's due tomorrow. He didn't go home for the 2 weeks. She somehow managed to hang on, and she managed to hang on.
Oh, well done, her.
He got all the games in, and he managed to get home for the birth of the child.
Oh, that's impressive. But I guess that goes back to the email last week where your mom was like, "Is this the end of my life?" It's like, play your cards right. Just make sure you're present when you're there, and you'll get away with loads of stuff when everybody's asleep and too strung out on fatigue to notice, it turns out.
Yeah. Yeah, we did get away with it a little bit. You're right. We should have enjoyed it more.
I wish I'd tried to pull more stunts then. Don't really feel like I've got away with much at all.
So I did. I definitely felt that because I think I was 5 weeks in France that time. That was definitely this is a really good opportunity. I'm going to enjoy this. This is not the sort of opportunity. This is not the sort of chance that's going to come around again. Yeah. I think we pushed the boat out.
Yeah, well, the best we were in, myself and Nathan were sharing the duties of the World Cup of 2015, the Rugby World Cup.
Oh, God.
So we did about 7 or 8 days apiece and then came home, and the other guy went out, did 7 or 8 days and then came home. And maybe I should have just told you to stay where you were, Nathan, and I could have just stayed for the whole tournament. Because we only had one then. Wouldn't have been the end of the world.
Oh, but
it all worked out well.
Geez, bitching and moaning sports commentators is the worst thing in the world, but that was some of the longest weeks of my life, staying in a Premier Inn in Burton-on-Trent. And I'm sure I brought this up before. Both my children, so as you say, we did every second week. But on 2 weeks when I was gone, both my children at the time got chickenpox. And not just a mild form of chickenpox, proper, full-scale, hardcore, couldn't sleep all night, high temperatures, destroyed with them. The first of them, I think, was the day I went. So I went in the morning, got a call from my wife that evening going, "Oh, eldest lad has chickenpox." I come back a week later and he's pretty much fully recovered. The second one, you couldn't make up. I'm sitting on the plane on the tarmac in Dublin at about 6:30 in the morning, and my wife texts me again and goes, "You're not going to believe this." Sends me a picture of the youngest lad covered in them that morning, and I'm just flying off for another week. When I think about it now, I'm like, what a terrible person I am. What a shocking father.
You had to go put bread on the table, Nathan. What was going to happen?
But exactly. Yeah. I'm so busy over here at the Premier Inn in Burton-on-Trent. I just couldn't get back home. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've never felt as guilty in my life though. Because you're just like this, like anyone who's seen kids with chickenpox, you just know how horrific it is. You're like, oh my God. And the guilt of your child is going through this and you're like, yeah, not doing very much. McIntyre's just walked off, that's fine.
Well, there you go. It's he didn't like your chickenpox story. Yeah, so that was our crack this week. I don't have anything else. My two thoughts were, geez, we got away with quite a lot, but actually didn't realize how much more we could have got away with.
Well, this week I'm back to full-time daddy daycare, and after a couple of weeks where one of them was in camp until 1:30 every day, and I miss camp already, but I can pretty much cope with everything apart from the hitting, and I'm no better at coping with that than I have been at any stage. After 6 years, well, not 6 years because there was only one for the first couple of years, but certainly the last 2.5 years. What punishments can you put down to try and stop this taking place?
I think, I don't know, I'm in the same boat with the not being able to take it, like the closed fist, where you can hear the smack of flesh and bone.
I heard the contact this morning, and I flew into a rage.
Yeah.
And because it's after like so many lectures, so many incidents over the last few days the last few years, I'd say I've had the same conversation now 584 times at least. Don't hit him. If he's annoying you, call me. He'll be the one in trouble. I'll deal with the situation. I won't consider you a rat. I'll consider you clever for handling the situation properly and ensuring that it is not you that ends up on the wrong end of any punishment that might be meted out. And this guy is incredibly clever. But this is one aspect of his life that he does not seem to be able to grasp. And it drives me mad.
Maybe, I don't know, one of the things that we've stopped doing, I try and stop doing, is completely shouting. Because there was a thing going around on, I don't know if it was on Twitter, if somebody shared it to me. It was like a shout, bigger shout, fear, anger. It's just a circle of shit, basically. So, like, they're actually grand with the hitting. The victim tends to be okay. Like, there's an immediate scream. It sounds like she's hurt. And then a minute and a half later, she's fine. So long-term damage isn't that severe.
No.
You've got to try and explain that this hurt. You can't hurt people. Because that's... But then I thought, like, he's going to go to school and get battered. And do I want him to be on the other end of a battering and not know how to look after himself? So, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
well, thumping somebody half your size is not exactly learning to look after yourself.
Well, learn how to throw a punch, you know.
Confidence, you know.
Yeah.
It's like a heavyweight fighter. You don't go straight in at the deep end. You take some easy fights to start yourself off until you get your rhythm. Yeah, I don't mind. I don't actually mind the general thumping too much. It's the cheap shots that always annoys me. Like, the eldest lad is lethal for it. So the youngest lad will, just give him a thump or give him a, quite brazen in front of you. Whereas the other lad will wait till, he might be half lying down on the couch and there'll be a flying knee from across the room. Or if they're playing football, one of them will, shove the other one down and give him a bit of a kick when the ball is there. He'll go straight in on the neck with the knee or something. You're like, what are you doing? Like, you're actually going to properly hurt. Like, just
it's the off the ball stuff.
Fight him. Stand up and fight him if you're going to fight him. Don't do something that's actually going to properly hurt him just so there's no way back. Yeah,
there's no real cheap shots here. It's just
relentless.
You're provoked and then you just lash out. And this morning was one of the few times I didn't see it, but I heard the contact. And it's so fresh after a similar episode yesterday where I read the riot act and explained in pretty calm measures and tones overall why this was just unacceptable and why he was my son too. And I wasn't going to stand by and watch one of my sons being struck in the face, whether it was a stranger or whether it was my other son that was doing it.
Don't you touch my son. Don't you react like, what am I doing here?
So, and I was kind of trying to explain to him, can you, look how much bigger you are than him. Imagine someone that size above you struck you in that way. How much do you think it would hurt? Trying to get him to kind of see what it would be like to be in his little brother's situation, being hit by someone who was way bigger than him. But I'm not sure any of it got through. We'll see until tomorrow.
I don't know. It's hard because, we definitely, there was a bit of, we watched the last Katie Taylor Delphine Pursoon fight, which I hadn't seen at the time. And it's like, if you haven't seen it, since coming out after the rematch, it's unbelievably violent. Pursoon ends up with like a giant welt on her face and beats the head off Katie Taylor. And Katie's like headbutting her and getting headbutts back. And you know, funnily enough, there was an escalation in the Gilroy child on Gilroy child violence in the
can't see
aftermath
it,
of this.
can't be it, Ger. Can't see it, can't be it.
Certainly, there was like a right. So that, I like your stance, but I know what you're going to do. Don't do that. So the pride has yet to overwhelm the anger, but maybe at some point.
You need to turn that into a social media viral video that you send to Katie and say, "Look at the inspiration you're providing for my family."
I have found myself turning into a rugby referee who's standing, by the ruck. And, he's like, 6, hands off, 6, leave it, 6, roll away, 6. And then
don't touch the ear.
Yeah. So the players obviously looking at the referee going, okay, well, he's warned me here, so they will stop trying to get over the ball or whatever the situation might be. I regularly find myself doing that. So then the referee doesn't want to be responsible for a game riddled with penalties. And I don't want to be responsible for a couple of hours at home riddled with lectures and iPads being confiscated, crying children. So I often just kind of wander around about my business around the house. And when they play together, which they do an awful lot, and fair play to them, it's amazing when they do. But I'm always, hands. Oh, no, hands away. Show hands where I can see them. No. Like barking at a second row. And I've decided there's only 2 reasons you can ever put your hands on the other guy. It's 1 is to stop them falling, and 2 is to give them a hug. In any other circumstance, if your hands are on them, it's wrong. Again, I'm not sure the message got through.
That's quite dictatorial there. But you got to have some rules, otherwise, what the hell's going to happen? Well, look, I don't know. Maybe some of our listeners have ideas about how to tone down the violence, or maybe we should encourage a certain level of it so that when they go out in the real world, this is less shocking to them. I don't know.
Yeah,
well,
what age? Like, is there an age limit when they get to 10, 11? And they can properly do damage.
Yeah, I don't know. You could inflict some serious damage.
Well, I didn't have a brother, so I don't know. Like, when you're 13, 14, are you still battering the shite into your brother?
I don't think we did. Oh yeah,
aren't you? I don't have brothers, but I think I've seen it. No,
I don't know. I don't recall. Like in mid-adolescence, I don't recall being in absolutely all-out fist fights with my brother. I don't remember that. But it would have been an awful lot more before the age of 10, I would say. Because I think we would have done serious damage to each other. Like as a 14-year-old, you can throw a punch and you can aim a kick at a deadly area, and you've learned a lot more about the human body and its vulnerabilities.
You're still talking about it 40 years later.
Yeah.
So I don't think so. Well, Jerry, you're the one suggesting turning a blind eye and allowing a certain amount of it take place.
Well, I don't know. Is it better than actually constantly being on edge and being pissed off at your own kids the whole time? It probably isn't. It's better not to be pissed off the whole time.
Well, I'm not pissed off the whole time because it only probably happens maybe once a day. So the whole episode is a 10-minute episode, whereby they might be in their room or. Like, I don't know. It's not something that's ruining every day in the mood of the house.
No, sure. Fair enough. But like
they're isolated moments.
Yeah, but when it happens, it's like, they obviously forget about it much quicker than we do, I would argue. Certainly seems to be that way.
Yeah, and as you say, the victim gets over it so quickly.
Yeah.
To the point where you're left still angry going,
yes. So that's the point.
What was the point of getting involved in this? Like, no one has suffered any long-term damage, but it's the principle of the thing. Like, you can't be allowing one of your kids be thumped around by another.
No, and so how you actually get to a point where you can teach that, I don't know.
Well, I've been trying it I've been working on it for years, and I haven't managed to come up with a solution. I don't bother sending it to the room anymore because it's just a complete waste of time. Taking a screen away is probably certainly a deterrent. My kids are now wandering around the kitchen, helping themselves to all sorts. They have copped on to this weekly hour where they realize Daddy is somewhat incapacitated and
can't give out to us.
There is, you can see a little head peering around the microphone there. There is the potential for any number of cereal bars and tuck crackers to be eaten. You put that in the bin for me? Good man.
Right. Anything else anybody else wants to get off their chest?
Well, Adrian was in touch during the week. He unfortunately couldn't make today, but he did want to discuss how you should react to that all-out meltdown in a restaurant. But maybe we should leave it until next week for him to talk through what.
Send us your stories.
Yes, Adrian must have gone through a real-life experience this week.
Dadcast@offtheball.com. You can use the hashtag Dadcast @DadcastPod. You can leave a review for us on iTunes. It's very helpful to us as well. Dadcast, The Misadventures of Parenting, brought to you by Cadbury Freddo Treasures. Discover the new Freddo Treasures, the Space Series with Cadbury Dairy Milk buttons and one surprise toy in every chest. Is there anything else coming up soon that you've already been away, Nathan? You're going to get away again, Dave? Are you going to get away? Is there a possibility of that? Now the kids are back to school.
No. We got away for a few days in Wexford there in July, but no, once school is back, that's it. And then on midterm, I think the hope is that they can get away on midterm, but unfortunately that coincides with the rescheduled Six Nations ties and a Champions League and Europa League week. So if I do get down there, it'll be for 2 or 3 days max. So no, nothing in the pipeline for McIntyre's. I just hope to God that our overseas trip that has been rebooked for next year is doable, because we're going to need some sun by then.
Yeah. What a crappy summer it's been. Like, the start of lockdown, the weather was great. Everybody was out. It was like, if that had been that type of summer, we all would have been, that's okay, we can take this. But like,
yeah.
Everybody's
added to the depression of the last few days where everyone's looking at this weather going, like, are we in for 5-6 months of this?
Oh, God.
The kids not allowed out. Crikey.
Jeez.
On that happy note, another Dadcast is in the books. We'll see you next week, folks. Thanks very much.
Dadcast, Misadventures in Parenting, brought to you by Cadbury Freddo Treasures. Discover the new Freddo Treasures Space Series with Cadbury Dairy Milk buttons and one surprise toy in every chest.